Hi, I'm Steve with Hall & Ash Outdoors. Recently, my son Chris and I went down to the Detroit area to a place called Erie Advantage Custom Tackle. We were invited down to see how they make their jigs and plastics, which I call walleye candy for the Detroit River. Some of the best tackle that you can use for jigging up those walleye. This is going to be a two-part series. We're going to start with the first part, which is going to be how they make their jigs. Today, Chris and I made a trip down to Erie Advantage Custom Tackle. The owners are Pete Pappas and Justin Randall. And what we're going to do today, or rather what they're going to do today, is show how they make their custom jigs and plastics. So you guys go ahead and explain the whole process, and I'm just going to stand by and watch.
Me too.
This basically, we'll start off with this making our jig. We got a couple of different jig molds we run for the season, but right now I'm just going to use this 3/4 ounce walleye jig mold. We're going to load up the mold with the hooks. Right now I'm using these Mustad Ultra Planes. These are actually going to be my personal jigs, but for production we use the Eagle Claw Little Nasties. Everybody seems to prefer the sickle hook.
This is the Eagle Claw?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the Eagle Claw Little Nasty, and then here's the Mustad. A little bit heavier wire. I'm just gonna try. This is the first year I'm gonna try these for myself to see how they run. I wouldn't put them in production until I try them. I mean, we've used those for what now? Since we used to use the Matsuo sickle hook. The sickle hook, they all went bankrupt. So I don't even believe anybody's selling anything with a sickle Matsuo in it anymore. It's basically a lot of people switch over to the Eagle Claw, the Little Nasties. I mean, it's a decent hook for the price.
It's a great hook for the price.
Yeah.
So
Especially in the river.
the thicker wire is because you guys cut these monster walleyes. You want to make sure you don't break off, right?
Well, actually, you actually kind of want. I mean, especially if you're fishing in a higher snaggy area, you want actually a thinner wire. That way. But the only thing I find out is when you bend a sickle hook out, try to get it back into that shape is impossible. So, I mean, the theory is if you got a thin wire, but that's why I kind of use a thinner wire stinger hook too, like a number 8 Mustad stinger hook too, treble. So if you get snagged up, you can kind of, with 20-pound line, you can bend the hook out and get your stuff back and kind of maneuver your stinger back. But I mean, it is what if you get snagged up hard enough, you just break off. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna sit there and go back over and try to unsnag a jig. So, but these are, like I said, these are the 3/4 ounce walleye jig heads. Just make sure it's seated. Lead's nice and hot. And this lead sets up pretty quick, so.
What kind of lead do you use?
Cleanest you can get.
Yeah, cleanest you can get. Like I said, we get a lot of people that offer us lead, but man, if you get some bad lead in your pot, oh, what a nightmare. Especially if it's like high tin. It
Gets dirty.
It's not only that, but
Just
your jigs become brittle also. As you can see, that's nice and pretty, you know what I mean, shiny lead. As opposed to, I don't know if we have any, like this one might have, somebody gave us some lead where it kind of gets like a dull sheen to it. Watch, it's pretty warm, but as you can see, like I said, the lead sets up pretty quick. Actually, fairly, I mean, it's almost immediate how fast the lead sets up. And then you can just skim the top of the actual pot just to get any type of impurities out, so you're not. But typically the impurities all do float to the top. You don't have anything, but every once in a while, you know, we'll drain it down and try to clean it out and all that stuff. But man, I bought, I don't know.
We got 3 pots.
Yeah, there's
now.
3 pots there. I mean, this pot's been going strong for, I think, 2005, so 16 years. And there's been tens of thousands of jigs poured out of this one here. So.
How many jigs do you guys pour in a year? Any idea?
Depends. Last year we got really kind of shafted, obviously, because of the governor. I don't know. I think we did somewhere, 3,500 jigs or so last year.
Yeah, maybe
probably.
Between 3,000 and 5,000 jigs. I mean, we got what we got left on the board over there, and then I think there's some down in one of these totes.
I mean, we pour 8 to 10, and if we sell what we got, awesome. You know, if we don't, they'll be there next year.
Yeah,
we're just kind of really starting to step up as far as, you know, online selling. That is pretty much the best way to get a hold of us. And it's continually growing every year. It's a hobby.
Yeah, or you could hit us up on Facebook. We're always down at the river. So I mean, if we can meet you somewhere, within reason, or if we're down there.
So if people want to order through you, just go through your Facebook
Yes.
page?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Erie
we
Advantage
respond
Custom
pretty
Tackle.
quick, and
He's the guru on the Facebook. I'm not as advanced on the Facebook as he is, so I think he answers most of the questions on Facebook.
I tend to have more time too, with being
But-
self-employed and stuff.
Yeah.
I've gotten to know the guy at the post office pretty cool. He's like, "Oh, more tackle." I'm like, "Yep, it's that time of year." We just sent an order out the other day.
They said we just make what we can make in a year. We're not like a high production facility. We're not mass produced. Some people will send their jigs out and have them spun cast, which in that you just send whatever company thousands of hooks, and they got the machines that actually spin cast everything, so they could whack out 10,000 jigs for you in a heartbeat. But we just kind of this is more or less a hobby business. We come out here. We started coming out in the garage, when is it, December? And now we're looking at the 1st of March already. So the winters went by. It just makes the winter go by fast. This is, people always say, why don't you ice fish? You like fishing so much, but I don't know. I think I enjoy making the tackle, getting ready for the spring, than I do the ice fishing.
Not only that, too, when you catch something on your own hook, man, I made that.
Yeah.
And that's what started the whole thing, going into the tackle stores back in the early 90s and 2000s. Basically everything was offered was a round ball jig. And that is, like I said, I came across Jan's Netcraft used to have, they were like one of the first ones in an Andy's Tackle in Melvindale, where you could actually buy the molds and produce your own little, so it was kind of like the first mold I bought, I think it was a Style H mold, and I ran that for a few years. And like I said, Do It Mold came out with the Walleye jig, and I had these made, mirrored after the Do It Mold Walleye jig. And then, like I said, when Justin came along, we came out and we went with these with the eye socket. So these have no eyes, and these, after you pour them and bake them, there's the little flat eyes, the holographic flat eyes that we glue on there. So if anybody's interested in coming over and gluing on 6,000 eyes, because each jig is literally, every one of these, after it's painted and baked, that's where the wife comes in handy, the free labor. So she's got the small little hand, so I'll dab the glue on there, and she'll take all the eyeballs, and
I'm gonna hold up one of these kind of close to the camera so people can see.
yeah, and that doesn't have the eyelets in it. That's been baked.
Yeah, that's ready for eyes.
Yeah, and that's ready for eyes. And then actually this one right here, Steve, this one's got a little dust on it.
So this is all baked, ready to go except for the eyes.
Actually, if you want to grab a money, but grab a 1 ounce money with the eyeballs on it. For me and Justin, that's one of our go-to colors right there. If I don't have a black jig on, I probably got a money jig on.
A money? That's what you call
Yeah,
it?
we
a
call
money?
that's a money jig. That's the name of the color. We just called it money.
Yeah, we don't put names and stuff because then it becomes a pain in the butt with the labeling and.
Yeah, it's.
But everybody has it's. I don't know. It gets out there somehow. Believe it or not, we have a huge network of people on the river. We literally live on the river in the springtime. Everybody seems to know the names and stuff like that of it, or even most people name them.
Yeah.
So this is pretty much the process to make the jig, and I guess.
Yeah, like I said, you're just starting out with your raw materials, your lead.
This is the pouring.
We get lead from some people will give it to us in exchange. We'll barter for some lead, and sometimes we gotta buy it. Whoever, Andy's Tackle sells lead by the bars.
I demoed an X-ray room, and the walls are lined in lead.
Lead.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll take care of all this.
All
for
right,
you.
yeah,
Don't
we'll
worry.
remove it
Don't
for
worry,
you.
I got it. In fact, this one is discounted.
And then another thing that kind of what sets us apart from other people also is a detail that we put on our jigs that a lot of other people don't, is after we snip, if you notice, a lot of companies,
Well, that's the next one.
after we snip every single jig, I buy these high grit nail files, and every single jig, before it is painted,
Get smoothed out and
is
filed
buff,
down.
is buff clean and filed down with
Oh,
no.
yeah.
'Cause some people will just
Yeah. Looks
some people
nice.
just snip and leave the excess on there, but I don't know. I don't find it attractive with the big hunk of lead staring out the tip of it. I like to file. Like I said, we file every single jig is filed down, and then after it's painted, I do my best to make sure all the eyelets are. Because once you bake, you know as well as I do. Once you bake powder paint on a jig. I mean, back in the old days, they used to have the jig busters, and you can bust that stuff right through. But today's powder paint, once it's baked on at 350, it's pretty bulletproof, dude. And I'll show you that here in a minute. We'll hammer one of these jigs because after I get done painting and baking a batch, I usually take a couple out in various areas of the
Quality control.
oven, and I'll smash one with a hammer just to make sure I know. I mean, I can't guarantee all 250 of them. For the most part, when you're out here jigging with these jigs, the paint tends to wear off just because you're down there beating and banging on the rocks and all that stuff. You know, every once in a while, you're down there beating on rocks. I really don't care what manufacturer or company it is. You're gonna get some chips every once in a while. You know what I mean? We do our best to make sure that we ensure that when we put it in a bag, it's been baked properly to where I feel comfortable that that person's gonna use our tackle and be happy with it because it's durable.
Quality has always been the number one thing too. A lot of it is we were getting, irritated with some of the stuff you spend, money for, and it's junk the second it hits the ground.
Yeah.
So longevity. I have a jig on one of my rods on my boat. I used it all of last year. It still looks brand new. I could take it off and sell it today. I mean, obviously we didn't get to fish a ton last year, but it's still nice to know.
Well, I guess that kind of explains the jig making process. I see you guys got this set up to pour some plastics, and I think we'll.
Yeah, we also make the stingers. Sorry to cut you off. We also make the stingers and all that stuff, but there's really not much to the stingers. Just a piece of line, a couple of crimp sleeves, and a treble hook, and.
Well, I think with that we'll end this part of the video, and we'll catch up to the plastics, and they're going to do the hammer test where they're going to beat one of these jigs up with a 20-pound sledgehammer.
Yeah, if you want to, we can actually do that right now. We can take this.
They probably got to reposition.
Yeah, I'll reset up the
Okay,
camera for
yeah.
that. So we'll end that portion here and go on to the next one. So Justin is going to show us the sledgehammer beatdown test. What do you call it,
It's just a smash
Justin?
test. It's just kind of a quality control type thing. You just take a jig. Obviously, we didn't put eyes on it because we're not trying to waste money. But this would be ready for eyeballs and ready for packaging. And we just put it on the ground, whack it, and for the most part, I mean, it's pretty good. I don't know if there's ever any such test in the river like that, but I'd say it adhered pretty well.
So you know that your paint process is
Yeah,
going to
the
hold up.
powder
Yeah.
coating is baked on there. The jig was at the proper temperature. Everything has to blend together. With this whole process between the plastics, the jigs, everything, temperature is key. And it turned out pretty good.
And obviously, there's no part of the river where you're gonna jig and your jig's gonna come out looking like that.
Unless Pete's in the front. Not
All right.
catching fish.
But for the most part, the powder paint actually expands with the actual jig, and almost like it'll start to split, but it won't chip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you can see it more or less flattened. I mean, I picked it off a little bit more, but it's definitely there. You can still see it was a money jig.
Yeah.
You got one more, Pete?
Yeah, there's a gold one,
And then we'll just try this one again.
I just kind of hit it a few times, kind of.
Again, we flatten the heck out of the lead.
Yeah.
And there it is. I'd say ship it. Actually remelt it, but
Okay.
Yeah.
other than that, that's that.
All right.
Oh, like I said, what we basically do to every single jig that we manufacture, everything's, like I said, everything's done in-house, one at a time. Well, we got the 5-cavity mold here, but once I snip off each individual jig, just a couple swipes with a high grit nail file, and then you got a smooth edge ready for paint. So the paint adheres better, and like I said, you ain't got a big gunk of lead on the tip there. So that's just basically that process. But I mean, when you got 500 to 1,000 sitting in front of you, it takes a little bit of time, and that's when we kind of get 2 or 3 guys over here and we whack through them pretty quick.
Yeah, we all.
And all the whole painting process is I take the jigs at home and do the painting at my house. I got a room downstairs that's just literally, I think I got every paint color that ProTech powder paint, CSI Paints makes, and then I get most of my paints from TJ's Tackle from the. I met those guys. It's been quite a few years now at the fishing show, and that's like kind of how I got into painting the jigs is through those guys. But I buy all of our stuff off of those guys. They're pretty good guys, so.
They're really good guys.
And I don't know too many jig, because obviously there's a lot of jig manufacturers out there now. Your choices are endless with with jig, which is cool because back like I said back in the day it was just going to the store and buying a round ball, but now you got quite a few people manufacturing jigs for individuals.
Do you find that the way that's shaped with the current that's in the Detroit River lets you maybe control your presentation better?
I believe, everybody calls them just the regular walleye current cutter jig, because it's kind of like a wedge shape where it kind of steers into the actual current. I find you can get away with a smaller jig in the heavier current as opposed to some people contradict me with I still got some people that are diehard round ball users. They won't use anything but round balls, and they say those are the best. Which, hey, if you're catching fish, as as well as I do, it's a confidence. If you're using this and you're whacking them, then by all keep using it. But I find that myself that I can get away with a 5/8 ounce jig, a walleye current cutter jig, as opposed to some people maybe using a 3/4 or 1 ounce in the river. I'll try to use 5/8. But recently, over the last few years, I found like the 3/4 ounce is like a perfect all around. It gets you from 30 feet to 20 feet. Even sometimes because the walleye we're catching in the Detroit River, they're not 15 inches long. You know what I mean? They have no problem sucking in a big 1 ounce jig. So whatever you're gonna do to feel bottom, whatever make you comfortable, make you feel bottom. But like I said, the wedge jig, this is all I've been using for the last 15 years. So if it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Right.
So this is my go-to 3/4. Like I said, this over the last few years, I personally switched. I used to be a 5/8 all the time, no matter what I had. My whole box was nothing but 5/8. Even up to 40 foot of water, I'd use a 5/8 ounce jig, and then that would get you all the way down to, some spots on the river 4 foot of water you're jigging in. Last year, me and him were catching fish in 5 foot, real nice fish in 5 foot of water. So, and we were both had 3/4 ounce jigs on. It's just, whatever's working, run it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to get back to it, the wedge style, I believe, this for my personal, that if you're using a wedge style, I think you can get away with a lighter weight in deeper water as opposed to going to a 1 ounce in another style of jig. There's so many I see people, there's a handful of people that all got their own custom jigs now, and there's so many different styles, but this is the jig we prefer. We sat on it. We've been using it for the last how many years now? 5 years maybe.
Yeah, at least
5-6 years we've been using that jig style, so
And it works.
works great.
we'll call 1 or 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2. Thank you for watching part 1. Stay tuned for part number 2. And that's going to be where they make their custom-made plastics. They make them in minnows, gobies, and worms. And a little spoiler alert, they come up with a custom color we're going to call the Holland Ash Red. Stay tuned. This will be a good one.